Hello again, and happy holidays to everyone. I'm sorry that it's been a while. We're back to The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. If I remember correctly, we kind of left off when Charlie was experiencing his holidays too. So we're going to get into part 4, and I'm just going to read as much as I can before I think it's too much. August 29th, 1992. Dear friend, I wish I could report that it's getting better, but unfortunately it isn't. It's hard, too, because we've started school again, and I can't go to the places where I used to go, and it can't be like it was, and I wasn't ready to say goodbye just yet. To tell you the truth, I've just been avoiding everything. I walk around the school hallways and look at the people. I look at the teachers and wonder why they're here, if they like their jobs, or us, and I wonder how smart they were when they were 15. Not in a mean way, in a curious way. It's like looking at all the students and wondering who's had their heart broken that day, and how they're able to cope with having 3 quizzes and a book report on top of that, or wondering who did the heartbreaking, and wondering why. Especially since I know that if they went to another school, the person who had their heart broken would have had their heart broken by somebody else. So why does it have to be so personal? And if I went to another school, I would never have known Sam, or Patrick, or Mary Elizabeth, or anyone except my family. I can tell you one thing that happened. I was in the shopping mall because that's where I go lately. For the last couple of weeks, I've been going there every day trying to figure out why people go there. It's kind of a personal project. There was this one little boy. He might have been around 4 years old. I'm not sure. He was crying really hard, and he kept screaming for his mom. He must have been lost. And then I saw this older kid who was maybe 17. I think he went to a different school because I had never seen him before. Anyway, this older kid, who was a really tough looking with a leather jacket and long hair and everything, went up to the little boy and asked him what his name was. The little boy answered and stopped crying. Then the older kid walked away with the little boy. A minute later, I heard the intercom say to the mom that her boy was at the information desk. So I went to the information desk to see what would happen. I guess the mom had been searching for the little boy for a long time because she came running up to the information desk, and when she saw the little boy, she started crying. She held him tightly and told him to never run off again. Then she thanked the older kid who had helped, and all the older kid said was, "Next time just watch him a little fucking better." Then he walked away. The man with the mustache behind the information desk was speechless. So was the mom. The little boy just wiped his nose, looked up at his mom, and said, "French fries." The mom looked down at the little boy and nodded, and they left. So I followed them. They went to the place where the food stands are, and they got French fries. The little boy was smiling and getting ketchup all over himself, and the mom kept wiping his face in between taking drags off her cigarette. I kept looking at the mom, trying to imagine what she must have looked like when she was young, if she was married, if her little boy was an accident or planned, and if that made a difference. I saw other people there, old men sitting alone, young girls with blue eyeshadow and awkward jaws, little kids who looked tired, fathers in nice coats who looked even more tired, kids working behind the counters of the food places who looked like they hadn't had the will to live for hours. The machines kept opening and closing. The people kept giving money and getting their change, and it all felt very unsettling to me. So I decided to find another place to go and figure out why people go there. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of places like that. I don't know how much longer I can keep going without a friend. I used to be able to do it very easily, but that was before I knew what having a friend was like. It's much easier not to know some things sometimes, and to have French fries with your mom be enough. The only person I've really talked to in the last 2 weeks was Susan, the girl who used to go with Michael back in middle school when she had braces. I saw her standing in the hall, surrounded by a group of boys I didn't know. They were all laughing and making sex jokes, and Susan was doing her best to laugh along with them. When she saw me approaching the group, her face went ashen. It was almost like she didn't want to remember what she was like 12 months ago, and she certainly didn't want the boys to know that she knew me and used to be my friend. The whole group got quiet and stared at me, but I didn't even notice them. I just looked at Susan, and all I said was, "Do you ever miss him?" I didn't say it mean or accusingly. I just wanted to know if anybody else remembered Michael. To tell you the truth, I was stoned in a bad way, and I couldn't get the question out of my mind. Susan was at a loss. She didn't know what to do. These were the first words we had spoken since the end of the last year. I guess it wasn't fair of me to ask her in a group like that, but I never see her by herself anymore, and I really needed to know. At first, I thought her blank expression was the result of surprise, but after it didn't go away, after a long while, I knew that it wasn't. It suddenly dawned on me that if Michael were still around, Susan probably wouldn't be going out with him anymore. Not because she's a bad person, or shallow, or mean, but because things change, and friends leave, and life doesn't stop for anybody. "I'm sorry I bothered you, Susan. I'm just having a tough time. That's all. Have a good one," I said, and I walked away. "God, that kid is such a fucking freak," I heard one of the boys whisper when I was halfway down the hall. He said it more factual than mean, and Susan didn't correct him. I don't know if I would have corrected him myself these days. Love always. Charlie. May 2nd, 1992. Dear friend, a few days ago I went to see Bob to buy more pot. I should probably say that I keep forgetting Bob doesn't go to school with us. Probably because he watches more television than anyone I know, and he's great with trivia. You should see him talk about Mary Tyler Moore. It's kind of spooky. Bob has this very specific way of living. He says he takes a shower every other day. He weighs his stash daily. He says when you're smoking a cigarette with someone and you have a lighter, you should light their cigarette first. But if you have matches, you should light your cigarette first, so you breathe in the harmful sulfur instead of them. He says it's the polite thing to do. He also says that it's bad luck to have 3 on a match. He heard that from his uncle who fought in Vietnam. Something about how 3 cigarettes was enough time for the enemy to know where you are. Bob says that when you're alone and you light a cigarette, and the cigarette is only halfway lit, that means that someone is thinking of you. He also says that when you find a penny, it's only lucky if it's heads up. He says the best thing to do to find a lucky penny when you're with someone and give the other person the good luck. He believes in karma. He also loves to play cards. Bob goes part-time to the local community college. He wants to be a chef. He is an only child, and his parents are never home. He says it used to bother him a lot when he was younger, but not so much anymore. The thing about Bob is that when you first meet him, he's really interesting because he knows about cigarette rules and pennies and Mary Tyler Moore. But after you've known him for a while, he starts to repeat these things. In the last few weeks, he hasn't said anything that I haven't heard from him before. That's what made it such a shock when he had told me what had happened. Basically, Brad's father caught Brad and Patrick together. I guess that Brad's father didn't know about his son because when he caught them, Brad's father started beating Brad. Not a slap kind of beating, a belt kind, a real kind. Patrick told Sam, who told Bob, that he had never seen anything like it. I guess it was that bad he wanted to say, "Stop," and "You're killing him." He even wanted to hold Brad's father down, but he just froze. And Brad kept yelling, "Get out!" to Patrick, and finally Patrick just did. That was last week, and Brad still hasn't come to school. Everyone thinks he might have been sent to a military school or something. Nobody knows for sure about anything. Patrick tried calling once, but when Brad's father answered, he just hung up. Bob said Patrick was in bad shape. I can't tell you how sad I felt when he told me that, because I wanted to call Patrick and be his friend and help him. But I didn't know if I should call him because of what he had said about waiting until things got clear. The thing was, I couldn't think about anything else. So on Friday, I went to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I waited until the movie had already started before I went into the theater. I didn't want to ruin the show for everybody. I just wanted to see Patrick play Frankenfurter, just like he always does, because I knew that if I saw that, I knew he would be okay. Just like my sister getting mad at me for smoking cigarettes. I sat in the back row and looked on the stage. It was still a couple of scenes before Frankenfurter enters. And that's when I saw Sam playing Janet, and I missed her so much, and I was so sorry about how I messed everything up, especially when I saw Mary Elizabeth playing Magenta. It was all very hard to watch. But then Patrick finally came on as Frankenfurter, and he was great. It was actually better than ever in a lot of ways. It was just so nice to see all my friends. I left before the movie was over. I drove home listening to some of the songs we listened to those times when we were infinite, and I pretended that they were in the car with me. I even talked out loud. I told Patrick how I thought he was great. I asked Sam about Craig. I told Mary Elizabeth that I was sorry and how much I really loved the E. E. Cummings book and wanted to ask her questions about it. But then I stopped because it started to make me too sad. I also thought that if anybody saw me talking out loud when I was alone in the car, their looks might convince me that something that's wrong with me might be even worse than I thought. When I got home, my sister was watching a movie with her new boyfriend. There isn't much to say other than that his name is Eric, and he has short hair and is a junior. Eric had rented the movie. After I shook hands with him, I asked them about the movie because I didn't recognize it except for an actor who used to be on a TV show, and I couldn't remember his name. My sister said, "It's stupid. You wouldn't like it." I said, "What's it about?" She said, "Come on, Charlie. It's almost over." I said, "Would it be okay if I watched the end?" She said, "You can watch it when we're done." I said, "Well, how about I watch the end with you, and then I can rewind it and watch up to the point that I started watching with you?" And that's when she paused the movie. "Can't you take a hint?" "I suppose not." "We want to be alone, Charlie." "Oh, I'm sorry." To tell you the truth, I knew she wanted to be alone with Eric, but I really wanted to have some company. I knew it wasn't fair, though, to ruin her time just because I miss everybody. So I just said goodnight and left. I went up to my room and started reading the new book Bill gave me. It's called The Stranger. Bill said that it's very easy to read, but very hard to read well. I have no idea what he means, but I like the book so far. Love always, Charlie. May 8th, 1992. Dear friend, it's strange how things can change back as suddenly as they changed originally, when one thing happens and suddenly things are back to normal. On Monday, Brad came back to school. He looked very different. It wasn't that he was bruised or anything, his face actually looked fine. Before, Brad was always this guy who walked down the hallway with a bounce. I can't really describe it any other way. It's just that some people walk with their heads to the ground for some reason. They don't like to look other people in the eye. Brad was never like that. But now he is, especially when it comes to Patrick. I saw them talking quiet in the hallway. I was too far away to hear what they said, but I could tell that Brad was ignoring Patrick, and when Patrick started to get upset, Brad just closed his locker and walked away. It wasn't that strange, because Brad and Patrick never talked in school, since Brad wanted things to be secret. The strange part was that Patrick would walk up to Brad in the first place, so I guessed that they didn't even meet on the golf courses anymore, or talk on the phone even. Later that afternoon, I was having a cigarette outside by myself, and I saw Patrick alone, also having a cigarette. I wasn't close enough to really see him, but I didn't want to interfere with his personal time, so I didn't walk up to him. But Patrick was crying. He was crying pretty hard. After that, whenever I saw him around anywhere, he didn't look like he was there. He looked like he was someplace else. And I think I knew that because that's how people used to say I was. Maybe they still do. I'm not sure. On Thursday, something really terrible happened. I was sitting alone in the cafeteria eating Salisbury steak when I saw Patrick walk up to Brad, who was sitting with his football buddies, and I saw Brad ignore him like he did at the locker. And I saw Patrick get really upset, but Brad still ignored him. Then I saw Patrick say something, and he looked pretty angry as he turned to walk away. Brad sat still for a second, and then he turned around. And then I heard it. It was just loud enough for a few tables to hear. The thing that Brad yelled at Patrick. "Faggot!" And Brad's football buddies started laughing. A few tables got quiet as Patrick turned around. He was mad as hell. I'm not kidding. He stormed up to Brad's table and said, "What did you call me?" God, he was mad. I'd never seen Patrick like that before. Brad sat quiet for a second, but his buddies kept egging him on by pushing his shoulders. And Brad looked up at Patrick and said, softer and meaner than the last time, "I called you a faggot." Brad's buddies started laughing even harder. That is until Patrick threw the first punch. It's kind of eerie when a whole room gets quiet at once, and then the real noise starts. The fight was hard. A lot harder than the ones I had with Sean last year. There was no clean punching or things you see in the movies. They just wrestled and hit, and whoever was the most aggressive or the most angry got in the most hits. In this case, it was pretty even until Brad's buddies got involved, and it became 5-on-1. That's when I got involved. I couldn't just watch them hurt Patrick, even if things weren't clear just yet. I think anyone who knew me might have been frightened or confused, except maybe my brother. He taught me what to do in these situations. I don't really want to go into detail, except to say that by the end of it, Brad and his two buddies stopped fighting and just stared at me. His other two friends were lying on the ground. One was clutching the knee I bashed him with one of those metal cafeteria chairs. The other was holding his face. I kind of swiped at his eyes, but not too bad. I didn't want to be too bad. I looked at the ground and I saw Patrick. His face was pretty messed up and he was crying hard. I helped him to his feet, and then I looked at Brad. I don't think we'd ever really exchanged 2 words before, but I guess this was the time to start. All I said was, "If you ever do this again, I'll tell everyone. And if that doesn't work, I'll blind you." I pointed at his friend who was holding his face, and I knew Brad heard me and knew that I meant it. He didn't say anything back, though, because the security guards of our school came to bring all of us out to the cafeteria. They took us first to the nurse and then to Mr. Small. Patrick started the fight, so he was suspended for a week. Brad's buddies got 3 days each for ganging up on Patrick after they broke up the original fight. Brad wasn't suspended at all because it was self-defense. I didn't get suspended either because I was just helping to defend a friend when it was 5-on-1. Brad and I got a month's detention starting that day. In detention, Mr. Harris didn't set up any rules. He just let us read or do homework or talk. It really isn't much of a punishment unless you like the television programs right after school or are very concerned with your permanent record. I wonder if it's all a lie. A permanent record, I mean. On that first day of detention, Brad came to sit next to me. He looked very sad. I think it all kind of hit him after he stopped feeling numb from the fight. "Charlie?" "Yeah?" "Thanks for stopping them." "You're welcome." And that was it. I haven't said anything to him since, and he didn't sit next to me today. At first, when he said it, I was kind of confused. But then I think I got it. Because I wouldn't want a bunch of my friends beating up Sam, even if I wasn't allowed to like her anymore either. When I got out of detention that day, Sam was waiting for me. The minute I saw her, she smiled. I was numb. I just couldn't believe she was really there. Then I saw her turn and give Brad a real cold look. And Brad said, "Tell him I'm sorry." Sam replied, "Tell him yourself." And Brad looked away and walked to his car. Then Sam walked up to me and messed up my hair. "So I heard you're this ninja or something." I think I nodded. Sam drove me home in her pickup truck. On the way, she told me that she was really angry at me for doing what I did to Mary Elizabeth. She told me that Mary Elizabeth is a really old friend of hers. She even reminded me that Mary Elizabeth was there for her when she went through that tough time she told me about when she gave me the typewriter. I don't really want to repeat what that was. So she said that when I kissed her instead of Mary Elizabeth, I really hurt their friendship for a while. Because I guess Mary Elizabeth really liked me a lot. And that made me feel sad, because I didn't know that she liked me that much. I just thought that she wanted to expose me to all those great things. And that's when Sam said, "Charlie, you're so stupid sometimes. Do you know that?" "Yeah, I really do. Know that. Honest." Then she said that Mary Elizabeth and she got over it, and she thanked me for taking Patrick's advice and staying away for as long as I did, because it made things easier. So then I said, "So we can be friends now?" "Of course," was all she said. "And Patrick?" "And Patrick." "And everyone else?" "And everyone else." And that's when I started crying. But Sam told me to shush. "You remember what I said to Brad?" "Yeah, you told him that he should tell Patrick that he was sorry himself." "That goes for Mary Elizabeth, too." "I tried, but she told me—" "I know you tried. I'm telling you to try again." "Okay." Sam dropped me off. When she was too far away to see me, I started to cry again, because she was my friend again, and that was enough for me. So I made myself promise to never mess up like I did before, and I'm never going to, I can tell you that. When I went to the Rocky Horror Picture Show tonight, it was very tense. Not because of Mary Elizabeth. That was actually okay. I said I was sorry, and then I asked her if there was anything she wanted to say to me. And like before, I asked a question and got a very long answer. When I was done listening, I really did listen. I said I was sorry again. Then she thanked me for not trying to make what I did seem less by offering a lot of excuses. And things were back to normal, except we were just friends. To tell you the truth, I think the biggest reason for everything being okay is that Mary Elizabeth started dating one of Craig's friends. His name is Peter, and he's in college, which makes Mary Elizabeth happy. At the party at Craig's apartment, I overheard Mary Elizabeth say to Alice that she was much happier with Peter because he was opinionated and they had debates. She said that I was really sweet and understanding, but that our relationship was too one-sided. She wanted a person who was more open to discussion and didn't need someone's permission to talk. I wanted to laugh, or maybe get mad, or maybe shrug at how strange everyone was, especially me. But I was at a party with my friends, so it really didn't matter that much. I just drank because I figured that it was about time to stop smoking so much pot. The thing that made the evening tense was Patrick officially quit doing Frankenfurter in the show. He said that he didn't want to do it anymore. Ever. So he sat and watched the show in the audience with me, and he said things that were hard to listen to, because Patrick usually isn't unhappy. You ever think, Charlie, that our group is the same as any other group, like the football team, and the only real difference between us is what we wear and why we wear it? Yeah? And then there was this pause. Well, I think it's all bullshit. And he meant it. It was hard to see him mean it that much. Some guy that I didn't know from somewhere else did the part of Frankenfurter. He had been the second to Patrick for a long time, and now he got his chance. He was pretty good, too. Not as good as Patrick, but pretty good. Love always. Charlie. And I'm going to stop there, and that's just going to be notated as part 4, part 1. This is going to get confusing. Oh well, you'll figure it out. You guys are smart. Till next time.